Hey, how's it going, everyone? Mr. Binder here. We're going to talk about the reproductive system now and the different endocrine glands that are involved in the reproductive system. These are called the gonads, or the sex glands. In the males, it's the testes, and in the females, it's the ovaries. Now, some of the sex hormones that we're going to talk about are androgens, estrogens, and progestins. And these sex hormones, they regulate the development of the male and female reproductive systems, characteristics, and obviously behavior as well. Let's talk about the female reproductive system. It's a pair of ovaries located in the abdominal cavity. You can see the ovaries are here. Again, the ovaries produce the female gametes, which will be the eggs. Okay? And this is half of what's needed in order for an actual conception. All right? The other half belongs to the male. The male provides the sperm. When the sperm and egg meet, there's obviously conception here, and then hopefully pregnancy. Again, what do the ovaries do? They prepare the egg for ovulation to travel up to the fallopian tube where hopefully fertilization will occur, as well as release some different types of hormones as well, which we'll talk about. Again, FSH and LH, these two hormones here, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, are released from the pituitary gland. And these two hormones work together to stimulate the maturation of the follicles in the ovary, and again trigger ovulation. We'll talk about the role of each of those hormones when we do discuss ovulation. Here we see the main hormone that's secreted by the ovaries, as well as some other endocrine glands. Estradiol. Estradiol is the hormone here that will mature the sex organs at puberty. Not only that, help to release the egg during ovulation, and again help in the development of sexual characteristics. Right? Again, in males, we'll talk about the specific hormone responsible for the stimulation or the maturation of males' reproductive organs, as well as sexual characteristics and sex drive. But again, in females, it's estradiol. Progesterone. These again are secreted by the ovaries, okay, or secreted by the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum, and if you take a look here in the development of the actual ovary here, we see a developing primary follicle. Now, FSH, okay, FSH is responsible for developing the follicle here. Okay, when you see, well, you don't need to know any of these terms as the follicle becomes matured. Okay. What we see here is an actual matured, I'll grab another color. We see a mature follicle, and we see an egg that is ready for ovulation. FSH is responsible for the maturation of the follicle in the ovary. Well, this follicle will rupture, and again, this rupturing is caused by the secretion or surge of LH, or luteinizing hormone. Again, LH will cause the follicle to rupture. That follicle will release the egg. That egg will then travel into the fallopian tubes where hopefully fertilization will occur. If fertilization occurs, what we see here is the development of a corpus luteum. So this ruptured follicle will then develop into what's known as a corpus luteum. This corpus luteum will secrete progesterone and develop the uterus for implantation of a fertilized egg if this occurs. Oogenesis is the production of the egg cells by the ovaries. And again, if we were to take a look at oogenesis, this occurs during the fetal stage. So this actually occurs when a female is inside of its mom's womb. Again, the amount of eggs that will be produced during this fetal stage is about 6 to 7 million. When the baby's born, there's about a million eggs in the ovaries. Upon puberty, there's only about 300,000 eggs. And over a woman's lifetime ovulating, again, what's going to occur is as a female will only ovulate out of those 300,000 eggs, approximately about 300 to 380 before menopause occurs. So taking a look at the maturation and the preparation of these egg cells, you can see that there's only a small percentage that will actually be released in hopes of fertilization. Now, oogenesis, the production of a mature egg cell here, we see it starts with an oogonium. Again, the process of producing a mature egg cell is known as meiosis. Again, this is the sex cells here that are being produced. We see 2N, obviously, which is a diploid cell going to a haploid cell, half the DNA. Now, the oogonium will develop into a primary oocyte, undergoing its first meiotic division. Again, this occurs twice. So we see a secondary oocyte, and the final will be one egg and 3 polar bodies. Now, the difference between the egg and the polar bodies will give the egg its cytoplasm and different organelles. Now, the reason behind this is in hopes that the egg will be able to survive the travel through the fallopian tubes in hopes of becoming fertilized. The polar bodies will not be fertilized. What happens is once the polar bodies have formed, they will disintegrate or undergo apoptosis, which is cellular suicide. And we see ovulation here. Ovulation is the monthly release of an egg cell into the fallopian tubes in hopes of fertilization. Now, the hormone that causes the follicle to rupture is known as LH. So a burst of LH here will cause the rupture of the follicle. Now, it all begins with GnRH. GnRH will stimulate, from the hypothalamus, will stimulate the pituitary gland to release follicle stimulating hormone, okay, and LH. Now, follicle stimulating hormone, remember, acts on the ovaries to develop a mature follicle. All right, when the mature follicle is ready, or when that egg is ready to be released, LH will actually cause the rupture of the follicle, and we see a release of the egg into the fallopian tubes. Now, the follicle, as well as other endocrine glands, will secrete estrogen to prepare the uterus for fertilization. All right, now when this occurs, the mature follicle that has been ruptured will develop into what's known as a corpus luteum. This corpus luteum here will release estrogen and progesterone to develop again the uterus for implantation of the egg and pregnancy. The corpus luteum, the progesterone that is secreted, acts on the hypothalamus to stop secreting gonadotropin releasing hormone, as well as FSH and LH, in hopes that the fertilization that occurs in the fallopian tubes here will implant itself in the uterine wall. If this does occur, the corpus luteum will slow, obviously with the production of progesterone, will help slow the release of FSH and LH. Again, if pregnancy does occur, what we see is this hormone here, HCG. HCG will act on the corpus luteum to continue to secrete progesterone and estrogen to prepare the uterine wall for pregnancy. And again, this will inhibit the release of a second egg during the whole pregnancy cycle. If fertilization does not occur, the uterine wall again will shed. We see menstruation and the preparation of the uterine wall for the next for the next time that a female will release an egg. Again, the ovarian cycle, it's about 28 days. We see ovulation at about 14. The LH surge causes the follicle to release the egg. Again, up until day 14, follicle stimulating hormone we see will help to prepare the follicle into a mature follicle. And once this occurs, again, we see the release of progesterone and estrogen by the corpus luteum here if pregnancy does take, or if fertilization does occur, and again, pregnancy does take place. Again, corpus luteum is very, very important in the role of preparing the uterine wall. if the egg is fertilized, okay, it will secrete estrogens, progesterone. Progesterone inhibits, again, gonadotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus, which will inhibit the release of FSH and LH. Again, we see the prevention of FSH here being secreted in hopes that when fertilization does occur and pregnancy takes place, another egg will not be matured and released here. The menstrual cycle again begins at day 0. It's about 28 days. Okay? Basically what happens is it's the breakdown of the endometrium in the lining of the uterus. Again, the reason why there is a preparation of the uterus is in hopes that fertilization will take place and pregnancy will occur. Menopause. Again, menopause, this happens in late 40s or early 50s. This is when the female will stop producing or will stop releasing eggs. Again, there are a lot of different side effects, and women will actually be, well, they will look for treatments of estradiol as a hormone replacement therapy. Male reproductive system, again, the gonads here, the testes. We see the testes here. This is where we see the testes will release testosterone to help develop the male characteristics, as well as promote spermatogenesis, which is the production of sperm, which we'll talk about. The release of testosterone, again, by the testes is controlled by LH, luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is obviously released when the hypothalamus releases the gonadotropin releasing hormone. Spermatogenesis, this is the production of sperm that occurs inside of the testes. Again, we see spermatogonium developing into a primary spermatocyte, again a secondary spermatocyte, and then from there meiosis will occur, and we see the development of mature sperm cells. Now, after spermatogenesis occurs, there is 4 sperm cells at the end of meiosis. With an egg cell, or with oogenesis, there was only 1 egg cell and 3 polar bodies. Here we see 4 sperm cells being produced as a result of spermatogenesis. Now, taking a look at this, it takes about 9 to 10 weeks, okay, for spermatogonium to develop into sperm. But testes, they'll produce about 130 million fertile sperm each day. Now, which cells secrete testosterone in the testes? Leydig cells. And the secretion of testosterone is controlled by LH. Now, in the development of sperm, Sertoli cells, which are also located in the testes, they supply nutrients to the spermatocytes as they mature into sperm. And again, Sertoli cells also cut off the blood supply. We see that there is a blood barrier here. All right, because if our immune system was to end up inside of the testes here, our sperm cells will obviously be attacked, and we don't want that to happen. Now, seminiferous tubules, they're located in the testes as well. We see this is where the mature sperm will be stored. Okay, the vas deferens will transport the sperm upon ejaculation. Again, taking a look here, the hypothalamus will release gonadotropin releasing hormone. This will have an effect on the pituitary gland to release LH and FSH. LH will act on Leydig cells in the testes. Leydig cells will secrete testosterone. Again, we know that testosterone will help to mature the sex organs in males, but also provide sexual characteristics of males. We see the release of FSH as well. FSH is responsible for the development of sperm cells in the testes. So FSH will act on Sertoli cells in the testes for the development of mature sperm cells. Again, take a look at these slides. Take a look at the different processes that occur in both female and males, oogenesis and spermatogenesis. Please understand that the different types of hormones that are occurring here. LH and FSH, again, are being released by the pituitary gland in both females and males to help produce the sex cells. So please understand that it's the same types of hormones that are being released here. All right. review the slides. Please take your own notes and ask questions when you come to class.